Hello. This lecture pod will explore some of the features of documentary in the period from the 70s and 80s up to the present day. We also look at aspects of Australian documentary filmmaking and finally at recent innovations in documentary. It is argued that worldwide, documentary film experienced a downturn in the 1980s, but was followed by a recovery in the 1990s and 2000s. In the 1980s, the factors cited were the negative impact of cable and satellite television, video stores, funding cuts from government, conservative political climates in countries that were not supportive of documentary film. But from the late 1980s through the 90s and into the 2000s, more positive results were seen in TV documentary. There was the influence of digital desktop video, film festivals, independent production, and in many cases more favourable political climates. Significant documentaries and filmmakers through this time included the following: Errol Morris and The Thin Blue Line, which was praised for its role in solving a crime, and his Academy Award-winning film The Fog of War. Wim Wenders with the Buena Vista Social Club, telling stories of little-known but brilliant Cuban musicians. Michael Moore's Bowling for Columbine. There were a number of notable films by Arthur Cohen, Agnieszka Varda, Chantal Akerman and Philip Kaufman. This period was followed by a strong show of documentary films for theatrical release in cinemas in the early 2000s, including the following: Fahrenheit 9/11 with Michael Moore, An Inconvenient Truth in 2006, which won the Academy Award for Documentary in 2007. Waltz with Bashir in 2009 was an award-winning animated documentary, startling for its evocative depiction of war from a soldier's point of view. These were just some of the many notable documentaries made for theatrical release during this time, and also included the following: The Corporation, Enron, The Smartest Guys in the Room, Who Killed the Electric Car, The Cove, Inside Job and Blackfish. Let's now have a look at Australian documentary from past to present. Australian documentary makers have had some strong role models, such as Frank Hurley and Damien Pera. Frank Hurley was well known for his remarkable documentation of the Ernest Shackleton expedition to the Antarctic in 1915 and the epic survival story that he captured with some of the most dramatic documentary photography and cinematography ever seen. He was also known for his ethnographic photography in Papua New Guinea. Damien Pera brought some unforgettable images to Australians from his experiences in World War II, and the film he shot, Kokoda Front Line, won an Oscar in 1943 before Pera was killed in 1944 whilst filming the US Marines in battle. But the 1970s through the 1980s and into the 2000s saw a period when a number of Australian filmmakers were documenting Australian life and issues. Some, such as Gillian Armstrong, worked in both documentary and drama. One of her documentaries, Smokes and Lollies, was similar to 7up and was a longitudinal study of young women in South Australia, filming a series of characters from age 14 upwards.
Myland is a very bad area. You've got all the rockers and that around. All which I do around my area, I don't even have to tell Dad, but there's someone who always sees me and always gets back to my dad. And I always call him a dogger and that, but they're only protecting me and my dad, really.
Other documentary makers started at broadcasters such as the ABC or trained at Film Australia, then went on to work as independent producers. Bob Connolly trained at the ABC, then with Robin Anderson, went on to make Franklin River Journey in 1980. It's argued that this film helped to put the Franklin River on Australia's political map, which many believe had a significant effect on the federal election in 1983, and in introducing new political power brokers to the public stage. For more, see links below. Other notable films include First Contact, Rats in the Ranks, Facing the Music, and after Anderson's death in 2002, Connolly continued on making Mrs. Carey's Concert in 2010. A number of Australian filmmakers became known for social and political filmmaking. There was Denis O'Rourke, who made a number of confronting films exploring social and political issues in Australia and the Asia Pacific. John Pilger has become known for highly political films. David Bradbury's films explore Australia's place in the world. And then there are filmmakers who have worked in a number of roles on documentaries. Examples are Pat Fisk, who has worked as director, producer and sound recordist, and Martha Ansara, who has worked as both cinematographer and director-producer on a number of documentaries exploring social and political issues. Other Australian filmmakers explore hybrid and highly creative aspects of the documentary form, such as Janet Merriweather with Jabe Babe, A Heightened Life. She examines the issues affecting a real woman, 31-year-old Jabe Babe, but she does so using highly saturated colours, vivid production design elements, live action and reenactments of scenes from Jabe's real life. Wendy Chandler explores documentary stories utilising complex layers of animation, live action and dramatisation, as she does in Heirlooms, capturing individual stories of heartfelt memories using precious family objects to prompt their thoughts. It's also possible to observe filmmakers who started in documentary film and then move on to larger scale factual programming. One example is Michael Cordell, whose first film, Year of the Dogs, was made in 1997. He has since been involved in the establishment of a number of production companies and now directs and produces factual television programs such as Bondi Rescue, as well as socially aware programs that also draw on reality TV formats to reach mainstream audiences. These programs also provide opportunities for emerging younger filmmakers, such as Nicola Daly, to work in professional contexts as a cinematographer on series such as Go Back to Where You Came From, and then to go on to win awards for films such as I Am a Girl, made in 2013. Some important frameworks for documentary production in Australia include the following: formal structures such as government funding bodies, federal funding bodies such as Screen Australia, and state bodies such as Screen New South Wales. And there are industry associations that organise events such as the AIDC or the Australian International Documentary Conference. There are also membership organisations such as AusDocs, which are convened for panel discussions, forums and industry networking. And there are organisations such as the Documentary Australia Foundation, which offers assistance to filmmakers seeking funding outside the traditional funding sources. Let's now consider the role of innovation in documentary and the influence of the web. The rise of the web has created both challenges and opportunities for documentary filmmaking and storytelling. We are seeing new forms of web documentary, the influence of crowdsourcing in both funding documentary projects and the use of mini-docs to help others find funds for their projects, which may or may not be film-related. There is the rise of the interactive documentary and the influence of transmedia on the documentary form. There are documentaries arising from activists in communities seeking to tell stories of change. One example from the US is The Interrupters, telling the story of 3 violence interrupters in the US in Chicago who try to protect their communities from the violence they once employed. And there are short documentary pieces appearing on many platforms, from large media organisations, such as the New York Times, to independent websites from filmmakers and organisations that seek wider audiences. There are also a number of open source platforms that allow for self-generated documentary filmmaking. One example is Korsakov, invented by filmmaker Florian Talofer. It allows the creation of web docs and a range of non-linear interactive narratives. You can explore this platform and some examples at the links below. We're also seeing some examples of peer learning and sharing of ideas, strategies and approaches. This example of interactive and collaborative research on documentary work can be seen in Australian Atalante Dionysus' work, The Journey of Documentary. As part of her master's research, Dionysus looked at the evolution of documentary from the past to the present day, with a section on how to make an online interactive documentary. She's placed the findings of her research online with sections such as how to make a web doco, distribution, web festivals and awards. It provides a rich resource for exploring new forms within the context of documentary filmmaking from the past. The web also gives access to international audiences from local and community levels. On the 70th anniversary of Hiroshima in August 2015, a group of schoolgirls interviewed their grandparents in order to document the experience of living through one of humanity's darkest moments, the dropping of the nuclear bomb in Japan in 1945. This website is an archive of this interview material and can be accessed from anywhere around the world. The material may then be used to form documentary narratives to tell the stories of what happened to ordinary people there. These projects mark a shift in traditional approaches to documentary. Rather than relying on broadcasters and funding bodies to support the documentary process, we are seeing numerous ways in which communities and individuals can be empowered to tell their own stories. It's an exciting time for storytellers and those who wish to capture stories from real life. I hope you can explore and gather inspiration from examples that you discover from your travels in observation and research.